Welcome to the live community, Confidant community.
Love that.
Welcome to the live. It's Jackie Porter, the Financial Confidant. And we're listening to Jiva. And the song is Free Falling. And I thought this would be a fun addition to the live. How are you liking the jam, Jen? You're jamming with me back
I like
there.
it. I really like the song. Yeah.
It's such a pretty song. And all of you live community and Confidant community members, you know I love being the pretend DJ. So every week, one of the things I look forward to about this is I get to be the pretend DJ. So I kind of dug in the crates today because I like to do that from time to time and came up with this glorious compilation of artists, actually. So this artist, Jiva, it's not an artist, it's actually a collective of artists who, by the way, are from Atlanta. They used to play for, if you can believe this, Sade. They used to be Sade's backup band. They've also been India Ari's backup band. They've also been Michael McDonald's backup band, if you can believe it. And they've also been Isaac Hayes. For all of you boomers, you probably know who Isaac Hayes is. They also played for him as well. So they have some amazing tunes, just an amazing band. Roy Ayers, actually, they were also Roy Ayers, which is one of my favorite musicians as well, his backup band. Are you familiar with Roy Ayers, Jen?
Sorry, no, not really.
Okay, and now check this out. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, because I am the original pretend DJ, you're going to have to look it up. All right?
I will.
So why I chose Free Falling, the song, is because I wanted to kind of introduce spring by talking about finances. And if some of you feel like your finances are in free fall coming into the spring season, because Jen and I are here back for our Ask Us Anything live series. And so welcome back, Jen. It's always a pleasure to have you. And,
Thank you, Jackie.
And this is the Ask Anything where we provide personal tips on personal finance. So this particular live, we're talking about spring cleaning, because if you are feeling like your finances has been in free fall since, we've been coming into this high time of inflation, high time of rising interest rates, and you're potentially maybe putting your head under the covers and not wanting to deal with your finances, this is a live for you, because this live, we're going to give you some spring cleaning hacks on how you can spring clean your finances. And it doesn't have to be hard. We actually are here to say it can, dare I say, be fun to spring clean. I mean, get out, the gloves, the rubber gloves, clean out the dust, let the fresh air in. And when it comes to your finances, feel like you're organized when it comes to your finances as well. So I'm your host, Jackie Porter, the Financial Confidant. I'm here with my man, Jen. He's back with us today to do some sharing of tips around spring cleaning. So Jen, are you ready to dive into some tips?
Yes, I am ready for spring cleaning.
Awesome, because we really want to make sure we prepare you for this beautiful spring season ahead. And again, going back to that song, I love it because it's just got that fresh and airy spring feeling to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So in terms of spring cleaning, I think the first thing is it's really important this time of the year, if you have been hiding under the covers and not opening those financial reports that come in. So maybe you've got credit card statements coming in and haven't been looking at them, or even your bank statements. Maybe you're not that person who goes in and checks what's in your bank account. I would love to know in the live community, in the Confidant community, how many of you out there actually look at your bank statements or go online and check what you've got in your bank account on a regular basis. If you are that person, feel free to chime in our comments. And if you're not that person, manifest, feeling organized and, really feeling in control of your finances going into spring. We want to support that. So let's dive right in, Jen. And I think let's start off with, it's time to review and refresh your finances just like you would at home. So let's give some tips to the financial confidant community just to help get them started. So let's start with reviewing your budget. Okay, so how many of you have a budget? And we're talking about the B word today. Hopefully that's not a bad word for some people. But let's talk about that, Jen. What are some tips for getting your budget in order this spring that we should be talking about? Because, the B word for people, budgets can be boring, but it can actually be pretty exciting, can't it? It can really give you that freedom and that peace of mind. And I think for a lot of people, knowing how much they can spend just means they can have that guilt-free feeling while, saving for all of their financial goals, like an emergency fund. So let's talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah. So, budgeting definitely may not be the most fun activity you'll do in spring, but I feel like at the end of the process, when you're done with budgeting, like you said, Jackie, the feeling you get from it, it's great. You have a budget to work with, and as long as you stick to this budget, you'll have this guilt-free spending where you feel really good about spending for something. So spring is a good time to get started. We are ready on the 4th month of the year. Can't believe it's already April.
Oh my
right?
goodness.
So we have a good 3 months of expenses to take a look at, to really take a deep look at, to see how much you spend and on what, and then we can start comparing those to whatever the budget you had planned for 2023 or from 2022. Or if you don't have a budget yet, it's a great time to create one for yourself. There's a lot of good budget templates out there and software you can use for your budgets. And what it does is it really helps you think about different items when it comes to your budgets. So once you,
I was going to say we actually have. So for those of you who are wondering what are some great, budget templates or budget apps, feel free to reach out to us. We have an article we did a year ago on the top budget software that are available out there, or you can reach out to us for one of our budget templates that we use with clients. Happy to provide that as well. Just DM us or leave a message in the comments. And truthfully, if the confidant community has some resources they want to share, feel free to comment. If you are using a particular template or budget software or app that you love, share in the comments so our community can grow from that.
Yeah. So like Jackie said, there's a lot of good resources out there. And then so once we start having the budget, create the budget and compare those to spendings from the first 3 months, we'll likely see the better. Where you'll start to see, I'm spending too much on takeout food, for example, or I'm actually not spending as much on here. So there, by doing the comparison, you can start to see where you might want to reduce your budgets or increase your budget to give yourself more room, and then to do really a good adjustment for the year 2023.
Exactly.
So I think that's the crucial part. And also, I think the trickiest part when it comes to budgeting is thinking about unexpected expenses.
That's right? It. Yeah, those emergencies, right? Those things that come up. The car, this is the time of the year for some reason. Sometimes a car that you've been driving around all winter, maybe it's potholes have done them in, and you go in to just do some basic, maintenance, and then they're like, no, you need to do this. Don't you love those conversations?
Exactly. And then you go see your dentist
don't
for regular cleaning, only for them to tell you, you have something going on here.
Yeah, we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about budgets being boring and why it actually isn't, and why it offers you some freedom. For those of you who are actually retired, you're going to really feel comfortable knowing that your budget's going to last throughout your retirement as long as you stick to it. So what do you spend?
Mhm.
Is it going to be the same amount that you're going to spend in retirement? And if we as advisors help you to calculate that number, that gives you a sense of how long your money will last in retirement, and all the way to age 95. Sometimes we find it so interesting when clients are like, no, I'm not going to live that long, or no, I plan to live to 100. It can make you feel, it can give you that sense of real opportunity, real possibility when you actually know what you have to work with. And then you can actually give yourself a little bit of flexibility in your finances when you know that as well. So keep in mind, and I again, we don't want to suggest that you need to watch every penny. These apps are meant to be resources, but wouldn't you want to know at the end of the day, Confidant community, where your money is going? We as advisors know there's only 3 things you can do with money, right, Jen? Spend it, save it, or have no idea where your money is going. That's it. I saw a really great comment from Axis. Hey, Axis, great to see you. Tell me how you like the song, or if you know it. Am I the only person on this live who knows about Jiva? Because again, I'm just going to feel ancient, but it's okay. So Axis said, budgets are awesome. It might seem overwhelming, but they truly help you control your expenses, and you often find there are more options than you originally thought. Preach, Axis, preach. You're 100% right there. So no, I think starting off understanding where your money is going is so crucial. And you were mentioning before, you were talking about comparing your expenses, Jin, to just see if you're overspending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because you were talking about the fact that some of us, get these emergencies that we don't plan for, and it's even harder if you overspend.
Exactly.
So it's one of the things you were talking about when we were talking earlier about this live, that one of the things that people don't think about are those major one-time expenses. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So major one-time expense, definitely. So it's a good time of the year to start really thinking about those, and then start looking into your home to see what might need some repairs and maintenance, or if you have anything that's planned up that you might have to spend big this year. Those are something you can put it into budget. Maybe instead of trying to come up with all the money at once, you can start setting aside certain amounts, maybe a few $100s per month, depending on how much you save for, and create some sort of reserve fund so you can use that to pay for those large expenses. Also to save for some emergencies, for like dental bills that you don't expect.
Exactly, because we know at some point there's going to be repairs to make in your home, or we know at some point there might be issues with dentistry. For those of you who've seen me on the live before, you've heard me lament all of my dental woes. But there are going to be expenses that are going to come up over the course of the year. So why not include it into your budget so you can have a much better sense of what your expenses are going to be? And as we talked about before, having that budget where you sort of understand where your money is going gives you flexibility. It also gives you flexibility if an expense comes out of nowhere. It might mean you have insight in where you want to reduce some of your expenses moving forward, like at least for the next few months. So you can't do any of those things. You end up being that person, which option 3, who has no idea where your money is going. There is option 3, folks. So I know all of our Confidant community members, you can be there, but you don't have to stay there. That's a choice. So let's talk about the second thing, which is another really fun spring cleaning hack, is cleaning up your bank account. So this is an easy one, right? Cleaning up your bank accounts and credit cards. So question for you, Axis, and the Confidant community members. How many of you feel that you have an overly complicated banking system for yourself? So what I mean by that is, how many of you have several bank accounts, credit cards, lots of checking accounts, savings accounts? So you don't have like just a checking and a savings account, you have multiple checking and savings accounts. Are you paying fees for those additional accounts? What about all the credit cards you signed up for? Are you keeping track of them? I have a funny story to tell. And I don't know how many of you in the Confidant community went through this. So Jen, I don't know if I've told you the story before, but when I was in university, back in the day, back fourscore many years ago when I was in university, you'd get this application when the different financial companies came to town, you'd get this application that you'd fill out, and it actually allowed you to apply for, you guessed it, 20 credit cards at once. So I was approved for 20. I had a gas card. I didn't even drive. I had all these different cards. And then I had a scenario where I ended up, unfortunately, somebody brought in cards because I couldn't keep so many of them. It's like ridiculous. So all of this to say, obviously, this was an extreme case that I was dealing with. But how many of you feel overwhelmed because you have so many different places to check your money at, so many different bank accounts, so many credit cards? You know, like I ask, Jen and I have been in meetings with clients where we ask them, what the interest rate are you paying on your different credit cards? They have no idea because there's too many to pay attention to. So our spring cleaning hack for you is simplify, right? So again, for people on our community, we ask the question, how many of you have lots of cards? We definitely like you to post in the chat, lament my 25 credit card story. But we also want to encourage you as you go into spring and you're spring cleaning your finances, simplify as much as you can, because ultimately monthly, all these different credit cards and all these different bank accounts make things stressful. They make it costly as well. So look to see if you can simplify with a checking and a savings account, preferably a no fee checking and savings account where you can, set your spending targets. You can, keep track of where your money is going in one place. And I know PC Financial, which is one of the companies that I'm excited about, will actually, they have a new banking account system that will actually pay you points, optimum points for paying your bills, which I think is pretty exciting. You can use your optimum points for anything that you buy in the store, but you can also use it to pay your bills. So check it out. I highly recommend consolidating the amount of bank accounts you have, preferably to a no fee, and also to reduce the amount of credit cards you have. So it's easy to track and less likely to be, deal with a fraud situation like I had to deal with in university. Wouldn't you agree, Jen?
Yeah. That 20 credit cards at once, it
was crazy.
As well. And I'm shocked to hear that.
Yeah, it's so easy for people to take them. I was in university in a dorm. So for somebody to come, we shared a dorm and just, which is probably what happened, why I ended up being frauded, because I don't drive. So what am I doing with a gas card? But the point of all of this is to say that there's no point in you having so many things to keep track of, so many things to look at. The more you can simplify your banking system, the easier it's going to be to track where your money is going, and likely the less you're going to spend on banking fees.
And especially with the bank accounts, I feel like there are fees being charged, and the fees also could change, right? You might have got an email saying the fee might change, but you may not have opened it and forgot about it. It could easily happen if you have 10 different bank accounts, for example, right? And also those credit bank account, checking accounts where they waive the fees if you have the minimum.
Right.
Think about if it makes sense for you to put the minimum there just to save the fee, or get a no fee account and put the 4,000 or 5,000 minimum into a savings account, high interest savings account or investments, and earn interest on it.
Right. Or put that same money towards paying down debt if you have debt.
Exactly.
So, I remember having a conversation with a client years ago where she had, money in a checking account, like a couple of checking accounts, because she had to keep that minimum, and she owed 5,000. So she had like 10,000 in two different accounts, and she had a 5,000 credit card balance that she was carrying. And I'm like, how much are you paying on that credit card? She's like, 19%. So I said, so how much are you making on this bank account that you have, that you've got money sitting in? She goes, I don't know. So I said, so you're losing 20%, but maybe if you're lucky, you're making 2. Let's just do the math here. Like, does this make sense to you? So, like, I'm encouraging you to go into spring cleaning your finances with your eyes wide open, understanding that you could have, money hidden in places that's not making sense. So, take a closer look, shine the light as you put on those gloves and you start doing the heavy lifting, and just make sure you uncover where your money is going and if you're using it wisely. The other thing is, if you have money in a whole bunch of different places, you might forget. You might forget about accounts, especially as time goes on. There's all kinds of, there's a website where apparently people have forgotten about accounts, Jin, and money is just sitting there because they've lost track of them. So don't be that person with money sitting somewhere that could be serving you and building your future, building your emergency fund, building your retirement fund. Axis came back and he's just saying, oh my, 20 cards at once is not your credit report's friend. No, it was not. It's so very, very true. So simplify your banking. Make that budget going into the spring. That was really one of the things we want to encouraging you, because at the end of the day, if you're having money sit in a interest account, low interest savings account, or checking savings account, and at the same time you've got debt and you're not looking at your big picture, you're not serving yourself. And spring cleaning is all about making your life easier. This is easy math we're talking about. If you're making 0% in a checking savings account just to save the banking fee and you're paying 20%, not rocket science here. I know that I have confidence in my confidant community to figure this math out and recognize that they're not serving themselves financially. Okay, so let's move on to credit score. So we were talking about credit cards, simplifying there, and bank accounts. I want to know, confidant community, how often are you checking your credit score? Is it once a year? Is it when you remember? Do you have a system for checking your credit score? If you do, if you don't, feel free to conversate. Post in the chat. Let us know how you're managing your credit. Because a good rule of thumb is to check your credit report at least once a year. So if we're talking about spring cleaning and this is something that you embrace, maybe you'll spring clean your finances once a year and check your credit once a year in April as we go into spring. So that might be a way to deal with it. But you just heard my horrible story about my 25 credit cards. I had to go to call the credit company, report fraud, because it took me a while to even figure out this was on my credit report. So it took a while. So just make sure you check your credit score at least once a year to just make sure there isn't that issue where it comes to people using your credit. Identity theft. Fraud is a major issue coming out of COVID. So definitely a prudent financial hack, spring cleaning your finances, making sure the information on your credit report is clean as well. Wouldn't you agree, Jin?
Yeah, 100%. Like, fraud is a big thing, and it's especially even more so recently, like Jackie said, with cybersecurity issues getting worse and worse. And it is possible someone to create a fake ID off of you to borrow against under your name. And the best way to check to make sure that that's not happening is checking your credit report to see if there's any loans or credit cards that you've never seen before. And then if you had never seen that, and if there's a balance on it, that could be a problem. And so that's a big thing you need to check. I even heard a story about someone whose ID was stolen, and only to find out later that second mortgage was borrowed against their house.
Oh my
gosh! For a few $100,000. That's something like that. That could easily destroy someone's financial situation. So.
Yeah. So I mean, consider even there are organizations that will do things to protect identity theft. So that might be something you look at. But at the very least, check your credit report once a year. And as I mentioned, consolidating your banking means that hopefully it'll make it less overwhelming for you to check in on what's going on with your bank account, because fraud is a bigger issue, and you should know that when it comes to your bank account, you don't have the same protection that you have with your credit cards. So if somebody does fraud on your bank account, it's actually harder to get your money back than it is if they do fraud with a credit card. So there's just more protections in place. So good idea to check in. I like to check my bank account at least once a week. So I highly recommend that you get into that habit of checking in on your finances, because that if you're someone who uses cash and you're that's one thing, but if you're using credit and you're not seeing the transactions going through, you might find out later than sooner that you've overspent what you wanted to spend for the month. So just make it easy. Press the easy button with some of these spring cleaning hacks that we're talking about. So now let's move on. Oh, actually, I just saw a really cool message from Axis. He said, this is great. This is really a great advocating message, which is don't be afraid to ask the bank questions. They work for you. So many people forget that. Different banks have different interest rates, lending rates, bank fees. Often they would rather help you consolidate, bring them all of your business instead of losing your business to another bank. So that's why if you say to them, listen, I want to make you my bank of choice, you can start leveraging that to get better interest rates, to get better interest rates for your savings, also for loans. So 100% agree with you, Axis. You just want to make sure that you know that you don't have to settle for what the bank is offering you. Yep. You can actually not have the bank be working for the bank, make the bank work for you, right? And you do that by just deciding that you're going to pay less in bank fees and that you're going to simplify to make your money work harder for you. So now we're going to move on to evaluating your investments. So how many of you, I'm going to ask another confidant question, which is the question to the community, which is how many of you check your investment statements, and how often do you check your investment statements? Is it once a year, every month? Do you go online? Are you online? Are you checking every day? I was having this conversation with Jen when we were preparing for this live, and I said, when it comes to checking your investments, it's kind of like the story Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
It's a great analogy.
It's like, how in Goldilocks and the Three Bears, it's like she goes to 3 sets of porridges. One was too hot, one was too cold, and one was just right. So the one that was, so we recommend as a rule of thumb when it comes to checking how your investments are doing, once a year is good. If you're checking every day, that's going to probably be too much. Even if you're checking every month, a month isn't a long time in the markets. To be honest, a year isn't a long time in the markets, but at least you can use that year to see how did the market do? How did your investment do? And what's going on? Why is your investment doing one way and the market's doing that way? Just to get a benchmark, to get a comparison on where you're at in terms of the investments that you're in and how the market is doing. That's a really great conversation to have with, if you're doing it on your own, then to just have with yourself, or if you're working with an advisor, to have with the advisor to say, how did the market do in the investments I'm holding? How did my investments do? And why? And why? What's the rationale for what I'm in? So those are the kinds of conversations you want to have, just to get a sense of how you're doing. Wouldn't you agree, Jim?
Yeah, 100% agree. So checking it too often,
too hot, too cold,
could lead to making decisions that could actually end up be costly down the road. Like we had a separate, I remember, live where we talked about the importance of staying invested. So it's very checking it too often could lead to bad decisions in the long term. And
it might lead to schizophrenia too if you're following every day in the market.
Exactly. And,
mental health challenges.
Yep, 100%. And when it comes to investment, also one thing that's very important is to see if whether your investment aligns with your current life and financial goals. So if you had investment set up in a way that you wanted to, you got into a conservative investment thinking you'll buy a home in the next few years. And after you buy the home, you actually have the same investment left over in conservative investments, while your next biggest goal is retirement. That you might want to start looking to see if it makes sense to get into riskier investment to take advantage of long-term horizons, or vice versa. Let's say you are getting closer and closer to retirement. By the time when you first year set up when you first set up your investment, maybe it was 10 years ago, and now you realize you only have a few years before retirement, then it's a good time to switch your investment to a more safer investment, so you can start balancing out your asset allocations during retirement.
Exactly, especially because if you're going to start taking money out of your investment, so when you're in retirement, you're living off the assets you built up. So you might not want to have all of your investments taking full market risk. You'll likely want to have some that's more conservative, some that's in cash, so you can start drawing on them and not be worried that you're selling low and not getting an opportunity to buy again, right? Because you're now starting to live on what you have to work with. So really good point. Now I'm going to go on to one of the last points around spring cleaning your finances. It's reviewing your insurance coverage. So how many of you, I'm going to go back to the live community again and say, how many of you, and I know insurance isn't a sexy subject either, but we're talking about spring hacks, and it means just, again, looking around, seeing what needs to be done, making a plan, and feeling organized. That's really what, to me, spring cleaning is all about. It's that feeling when everything's done and you're like, feels so good. So we're talking about insurance, and insurance, why we recommend checking your insurance. So I would recommend once a year, but I don't know how often people look at their policies, know how much insurance they have, see if the plans that they put in place still make sense. But the questions that you want to ask once a year is, has my circumstances changed? My risk circumstances changed? So what I mean by that is, do I have, did I have a child? Did I get married? Did I buy a home? So do I have a mortgage now? So all of these things might be, reasons for you to revisit the insurance coverage you have in place. Maybe you have too much. Maybe you have too little. Maybe you've paid off your mortgage and you have mortgage insurance and your kids are older. So now you don't necessarily need the coverage that you set up many years ago. Or the opposite could be true. You just had a baby, you just got married, and then shortly after decided to buy a home. So in that scenario, again, your risk needs have changed. So you just want to make sure that as your financial circumstances, your life circumstances change, that the insurance catches up to it. Because as you have more and more people depending on you for income, and even the income you depend on for yourself, for working, you just want to make sure you've got coverage in place. One of the things I see a lot, and especially in this market, as people, some of our tech clients are getting laid off from their tech jobs, is they're getting a package. They're getting packaged out. They're leaving, and in the course of that, they don't necessarily want to be in a position, because they still have a mortgage, still have kids, and when they leave a company, they no longer have disability coverage. So they actually, typically you have 30 days before you leave a company to either keep your current disability and take it with you, or you lose it and you have to start the process of looking for disability coverage again. So if you don't even know that you're in that situation, you might lose the opportunity. But if you are in a situation where you've just been let go of a job, that's a situational scenario where you want to revisit your coverage, because if you had group insurance and you had disability, and now like income replacement plans, and now you're leaving the job, now you're not having any coverage. So you definitely want to revisit, what you have in place at that point in time. So really important to just think about whether your insurance aligns with your current life circumstances, and just do a risk analysis at least once a year to make sure you can determine that.
Yeah, I agree everything you said, Jackie. And one thing to keep in mind is risk planning and insurance needs change over time.
That's it.
Not a lot of people realize that, but it changes based on your life circumstances, how much debt you have, and how much income you have, and all those. So, great time to start looking into that around this time of the year.
100%. It's again in support and in the spirit of spring cleaning, is just revisit your circumstances at least once a year in spring, as we turn the page on all of the indoor activities we've been doing, and maybe dust that's collected, looking at your finances again, opening up the doors, letting some sunshine in. Hopefully that means we'll let some good vibes into your finances, and leave you going into the spring feeling organized. So the final tip is, I get it. Some people feel overwhelmed or unsure about spring cleaning and even spring cleaning their finances. Maybe a whole lot of dust has been building up in your house since the last time you spring cleaned. And just the idea of getting started, that whole process of getting the gloves out, getting the pail and the mop, and taking papers out of cupboards. We are going to actually, now we didn't speak about document organization on this live, but we are going to dedicate an entire live on this subject. We're going to have a personal organizer come in and talk about document management. So stay tuned for that. But if you are somebody who just feels overwhelmed by that process of starting, because we do understand organizing and managing your finances can be challenging. So we are here for you. Feel free to comment on this live if you have specific questions about your own financial circumstances. Jody's also here if you want to book a 30-minute spring cleaning your finances session with her. Feel free, because it's all about working with people that you trust. It was great when Jody was here because some of you got a chance to meet her. So hopefully if you're looking at reorganizing your finances for the spring, feel free to reach out to us. But at the end of the day, we just recommend that you find someone that you feel comfortable working with, someone who can provide you with that advice to help you get started, get organized, so you feel like you're in control of your personal circumstances going into the spring season. I know, Jen, you had you're a QFP, CFP as well, so you're familiar with some of the things that FP Canada does.
Yeah. So FP Canada has a directory of all the certified financial planners and KFAFPs as well. So that's a great resource to check if there's any financial planners around your area, or maybe even online remote. So you can start interviewing your different financial planner to see who you want to work with and who you will feel comfortable working with.
Exactly. Like I'm a financial planner, and it also lists the specialties that they have. So, there's some financial planners that specialize in specific areas. I myself deal with, I have a lot of clients that are women who are, legal professionals or business owners. So that's one of our specialties, because we love doing tax planning and cash flow management. So those are some of the things that we spend quite a bit of time with our clients working on. So feel free to reach out to us if you think it would be a fit for you. But again, as I said, in the spirit of spring cleaning, our hope for you, that what we want to manifest for you going into the spring, is feeling like a boss when it comes to your finances. So feel free to reach out to us. Check out our live. We're going to have more lives around spring cleaning, around getting organized around your finances. You're going to have to stay tuned and check out all of our resources. So, for sure, if you like this spring cleaning live, share it with a friend. Definitely stay tuned to us for all of our latest updates, and see you next week. Thanks again for coming, Jen, for Ask Anything live series. Bye, Confidant community. See you next week.
Bye, Confidant.